And we are live. G'day everyone, Mike Jeffrey here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, episode number 46. To all you listeners out there, hello, and thank you so much for taking the time to stop by here today. As I said, my name is Mike, and I'm a photographer, podcaster, and small business owner based here in Port Macquarie, Australia. Each week on the show, I bring you guys along on the highs and lows of my own creative journey and share all the knowledge that I've gained along the road to building my own freelance business. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about marketing your business and some of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of marketing and in my story and in how I've been trying to go about that over the past couple of weeks in talking about some of the things that I was speaking on last week, trying to reflect on those and thinking about trying to go to my best advantage and use some of the things that are bringing me the most value and trying to go hard at those and trying to work smarter, not harder, and trying to lean into the things that are trying to bring me the most value in marketing and that sort of stuff. But before we jump into that, I just want to dive into what has been going on for me this past week. And today's episode is actually a pretty unscheduled episode. I wasn't meant to record an episode today. I was actually planning on heading out this afternoon to go take some photos, but it just started raining. So I decided why not just record an episode today. It's probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode, but I think you guys have been really appreciating the shorter episodes, to be honest. And from all the feedback I've been getting on Instagram and in my messages and things like that, you guys are really appreciating the shorter episodes, anything like around that half an hour range, which has been really nice. And I'm really enjoying recording that style of episode because I find that I don't stress too much over what I have to speak about, because speaking for a longer period of time, I feel like sometimes I can get caught up in not knowing what to say, and I feel a real stress to have to sit down and record because there's that expectation that you are going to speak for that amount of time. So it's been really nice to just record those shorter episodes, and I think you guys have been really appreciating them. Over the past weekend, you may have seen on Instagram or elsewhere that I went down to Sydney. Back there for the first time in the past month to go and take some photos. So I did a couple of engagement sessions that I had planned way back in early spring. Had those planned for September, and then they got called off due to lockdown. Obviously, we were in lockdown in Sydney all through September, all the way up till mid-October, and really we weren't able to do them until November. So then I had to really move them back to the end of November because we obviously moved up to Port Macquarie in early November. So I've had to move them back until the end of November, but I always said that I really wanted to get back down there and do those two shoots, and I did manage to line both of them up on the same weekend, which was really nice. So we went down and did one on the Saturday afternoon, one on the Sunday afternoon, which was really, really easy to be able to go and do those, and that was really nice to be able to drive back down there and to go get those done. We didn't really get the greatest of weather over the weekend. It was quite cold and quite miserable, to be honest. But on the one on the Saturday afternoon, we actually avoided the rain only just. We had about an hour window there between about 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock where we just got photos. And as we were ending, it just started to rain. So we just squeezed it in there. And then on the one on Sunday afternoon, it was freezing cold in the wind for the end of November. Very strange to be down there in the freezing cold, but it was good to be able to get them done. I think it really created that sort of memory that I think that they will actually look back on and remember that as being like they were out there in the rain, in the cold, actually taking photos, and they'll have those memories to look back on. And it's not the style that we were originally after, but I think we did still walk away with images that I'm really proud of, and I've been working through those through the course of this morning, and they've been actually really impressed with how they turned out. All things considered, with all the rain hanging around and how the conditions were. So that has been really good. I think for me, one of the big things that was really hitting me as I was driving down there and to go and in the process of organising to go and take these photos and to go and do these shoots back in Sydney was really one of the big things that I knew when I was moving was that I still wanted to be able to conduct my work the way that I always was. So for me, moving to Port Macquarie was obviously a large move. It's probably about a 4.5 hour drive away from Sydney. So I knew that I still wanted to be able to conduct my client work in Sydney if that was something that I was able to do. And to be able to still go back down there was really good for me to be able to see that I was able to do that over the course of the weekend. I never wanted to abandon client work that I'd already had because I'd already committed to that. So that obviously takes priority, and I'm going to continue to try to provide those services as best as I possibly can. You know, it's obviously going to be hard moving forward, trying to book in new work in Sydney, but obviously any old work that I had booked in is still going to have to be up to a standard. I'm still going to have to make sure that I prioritize that work and be able to get down there. I never want to get to a stage where things in my private life and things that I've decided to do on my own impact clients. So that should never come into business. I don't think we should be passing that on to clients. I don't think we should be passing expenses, especially. Like, I would never charge someone for travel because I decided to move away. I've already booked weddings in for the end of next year in Sydney. I've booked ones in for early 2023 in Sydney as well, and I wouldn't charge them for travel just because I decided to move away. I don't know where I will be in early 2023, but I can't then decide that I'm going to charge someone for something that I didn't know about. And then for me to turn around and say, well, I can't actually do that work for you. It's only an engagement session. It's only an hour, but I've still got to make that effort to get back down there, and I've still got to go and do that work. And I think that really shows for the clients, and they really appreciate that you would make the time to go back down there and do that, because for them to have to find someone else to go and do that is a lot more of a hassle than for me to just drive down there. And I really appreciate it. And obviously, for the stage that I'm at in my career, I really enjoy being able to go and do the work. So it's been really nice to be able to get back down there and still work with all those clients. So that has been really nice. And I think I'll be back down in early January. I will be down in January. I'm shooting a wedding in Sydney in January, but then I think I've got another couple of engagement sessions lined up towards the end of January. So that's going to be really nice as well to be able to get back down there. And we've got a lot more work lined up into the new year. And with that said, I just really want to jump into today's topic. I know it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode today, but I really want to jump into a few things that I've been thinking about over the course of the past week, and that has been to do with marketing. I think I was listening to a podcast episode probably early last week, maybe the week before, about marketing, and it was sort of made me think a little bit harder about some of the things that I've been working on and some of the strategies I've been using in my own business to really be able to market myself and my business, and also trying to think about the things that I probably haven't been going about the right way, things that I've been avoiding, things that I've been neglecting in my own business. And so I wanted to bring those to the forefront in this episode today and really give you guys an insight into how I really think about these types of things and how I'm trying to go about them into the future, because I think we're always trying to learn, we're always trying to improve, and anything we can learn from is always good. The really big thing that stands out for me in marketing is that it's such a strange thing. There's a lot of creative people out there, a lot of photographers especially, that I'm involved in that sort of photography area. So I really know about a lot of photographers, and I hear from a lot of photographers, but I'm sure there's a lot of creative people, a lot of artists out there as well who really struggle with marketing. And it's not something that comes easily to a lot of people. It's a very something that feels a little bit sort of wrong. I think we've got that sort of negative connotations around marketing. We've got there's a lot of that stigma around marketing that's really saying you have to push a product, you have to push a service, you have to push yourself, and trying to jam something down someone else's throat. And it feels almost wrong. You don't want to impose yourself onto other people. And I've always come across it that way myself, to feel like I don't know how I can market myself to other people without coming across too salesy, without coming across feeling like I'm jamming a service down their throat that they don't really overly want or need. And so that has been a whole repositioning for me in trying to, I think, early stages, one of the real groundwork is to understand why people need my service. If I don't know why people need my service, then I cannot go and market it to anyone if I don't actually know why they would need it. So I always feel bad trying to spruik my service to someone who I don't think would need it. So for me, it's a big point of actually proving to myself that people do need my service. It's not something that is just reserved for those people who can actually afford the service. I think the service I provide as a photographer, I've had to learn over the past year, and I think I've come to the point now where I truly understand why people need the service that I do provide, not only as a wedding photographer, but providing not just the standard wedding photography service, trying to go above and beyond, and why should people choose me over someone else, and what do I provide that stands me apart, but also why my service is more important, and why all those extras are important. And if I can't understand why that's important, I can't speak it to someone else, and I can't provide them value, and I can't even imply that they would need that, and imply that I'm trying to give them so much value if I don't know what sort of value I'm providing in the start. So I think that was one of the big things in trying to understand that it's not such a strange thing to do. If I really truly believe in something, it's just like me speaking about something here today. So if I can truly get to that point where I feel like it's a service everyone needs, then it becomes a little bit easier to talk about. But in that same realm, it's still not easy. It's still not something that comes very naturally to a lot of people into trying to share their work and trying to put themselves out there a lot. I think with marketing, one of the big things is that the idea with marketing is to really stand out. You have to make your services stand above other people, and that goes against a lot of things that we're really used to as human beings in society, in a lot of different things. It doesn't really matter how much of an artist you are, how much of a extroverted person you are. I think it goes against human nature to really put yourself out there and try to be out there and well known and out there and make people know about things that you're trying to do. I think to be able to put yourself out there and be able to stand out in a crowd, I think is a hard thing to do, and it's something that has to be learned. It's something that needs to be able to be switched on almost. You need to be able to get yourself in that position, because it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be something that you're going to always do. So learning the times when you can get into that mode and when you can try to think a little bit outside the box about how this is going to push yourself forward. How is this going to push you and your business to be in front of as many people as you possibly can? Because in the end, that is the point of marketing, is to get it out there in front of as many eyes as you possibly can. So it really does have to stand out. And it's the opposite to trying to be in that sort of herd mentality that we're used to being as a society, just trying to walk through our everyday life without interacting with many people, without trying to stand out, trying to just fit into the crowd. Marketing is the opposite of that, where you're trying to stand out, and that can become really hard for a lot of people. I think as artists, there are a lot of great artists out there, but you wouldn't actually know about a lot of these artists because they're creating work, but you're not ever hearing about it. So if your work isn't being shown to someone, they cannot possibly go and buy that work. You've got to create enough noise around yourself. You have to be being able to put yourself out there so that people know about you and your services, so they know about you and your products, your art. If you're trying to do this seriously, there's no point of just being in your garage at home working really hard but not having anyone hear about it, And so that has been one of the big things for me, is trying to really put myself out there. And so for me, it comes down to really 2 points in trying to stand out. There's been a couple of things that I've been trying to do and that I hear a lot talked about. And the really first one for me is trying to find your niche. And I've spoken about trying to find your niche before, made a whole episode about that. And I think that is very important because people want to immediately know what it is you do. If you can't tell people what you do, then it's going to be very hard for them to know what you do, and then it's going to be hard for them to subscribe to whatever it is you do. So if people don't know what they're turning up for, if people don't know what artwork they're tuning in for each week, if I was trying to produce a different piece of artwork in a completely different style each week, it would be very all over the place for people, and people wouldn't probably enjoy it as much because they don't know what they're expecting. There's a whole story that goes in behind artwork, and if people know your style, they can turn up, and if they've already seen 100 pieces from you, they know that next piece is going to fit into that scheme, into that collection of artwork that you've been sort of creating over the past few years. So it's all about making sure people know what they're turning up for, but also so that that work speaks in that collection, in that group of artworks itself. So it's not just a fragmented piece of art that isn't interconnected with anything else you've ever done before. And I think people like that journey. People like to know what it is they're tuning in for, but it also makes it easier for you as an artist to really hone your craft and really move into a general direction. For me, I've obviously gone into wedding photography because that has been my niche. That has been something that I've been trying to really drill down on and trying to go hard at, trying to become a wedding photographer so that I'm not just a anything photographer. If people were to turn up on my website and I was just having images of all different types of things, they're not going to know what it is I do. And so I might get some random emails from people, but they're probably not people who are overly serious because they don't know the journey. They don't know what type of service I provide. So it's probably going to be random emails just asking me about any style of photography. I've been very specific to try to cultivate my website and trying to curate that in a way that the images on there speak to what it is I want to do, so that then when people go there, they know exactly what it is they do. The images speak louder than the words themselves because they know as soon as they go on there what it is I do and what type of art I create and what type of imagery and how I tell a story. So that is something that overall is really going to help. And I think that has been something that's really been positive. As much as I don't want to become too pigeonholed, I think it's very important to be able to have that niche. But then again, I think on the other hand, the other big thing really is to just be yourself. And you'll hear people say this a lot, but I think it's so important is to be yourself, because whilst we can come down and come into a niche and really try to narrow down the things we do, it's so important to be yourself, because no matter what niche you're in, there's going to be other people in that niche. And if it's a smaller niche, maybe there isn't a larger market for it. If there's a large market for it, there'll probably be heaps of people in that niche. For me, as a wedding photographer, there's a lot of people who are out there also as wedding photographers. So one of the big things that stands me apart from other people, and the only thing that really stands me apart from anyone else, is the story that I have and the unique voice that I have in this art form and in this career. There's no one else who can be more like me than me. So knowing who it is you are and knowing what story it is you want to tell and how you want to tell that story, knowing what your unique voice is, I think is so important, and sticking to who it is you are. Try to be yourself as much as you possibly can, because no one else can be you. And that is often hard. It's often hard to put yourself out there, and people will try to be like someone else. People will try to steal styles from other people and try to act like someone they're not. And I think that is easily seen through, and it can obviously work up to a point, but it can be very hard to maintain over the long term. It's hard enough to put yourself out there, let alone if you're trying to put yourself out there as someone who you're not. So for me, that has always been something that I've been trying to do, and trying to not be a person who I'm not. I wouldn't sit here every week and be this up and animated person, because that's not really who I am. I like to sit down here and speak about the different types of things that I like to talk about, and talk about things that I've been thinking about through the week. I'm not going to sit down here and speak about things that I don't genuinely believe in, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to maintain that, and that's not going to be something that is going to be consistent. That is really the aim of the game, is to be as consistent as you possibly can. And so I really want to jump into now the places where I think is important to be able to share yourself. I think as much as it's great to be yourself, I said you can't just be an artist in isolation. You need to make sure your work is out there in the world, and you need to be able to make sure you're speaking to as many people as you possibly can. That's what it's all about in marketing, is being in the places where other people are, but then also not being in the places where other people are. I think one of the big things for a lot of people, especially on social media and things like that, is people are just trying to copy other people. So they will only turn up in the platforms where other people are. And this is a big thing on social media, is the idea is not to be where everyone else is. If you're going to be where everyone else is, you're just adding to everything that everyone else is trying to do. And it's going to be very hard to stand out in a situation where everyone else is there. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently in the different types of social media and where I can be spending my time, because I find sometimes, especially on Instagram, it can be very hard to stand out, because I think every photographer is on Instagram. There's a lot of artists on Instagram, especially because it's very easy to just be able to have images of your work on Instagram. So it's a lot about diversifying yourself and being able to speak. And I try to be on stories as much as I possibly can, because I want people to know who it is behind the artwork. I don't just want the artwork to be there by itself. I have never gotten to a point where I think my artwork is amazing that it speaks for itself, and as soon as you have a look at a piece of my art, you would immediately know it's me. I don't think I'm ever at that stage. So trying to create a voice behind the artist and a voice behind who it is who produces the work has always been very important to me. And so in that vein, thinking about the different places where I can put my work that other people may not be. I think it's so hard to stand out on Instagram, but there may be other places where other people aren't choosing to put as much effort. And I think that's been one of the big things for me that I've probably neglected, because I've been spending so much time on Instagram and other things like that. So trying to diversify myself into other platforms that may be able to give me more success. There are other places out there where people won't put in the work because it is harder. There are other platforms. Instagram is a very easy platform to be on. You can upload a photo every night if you wanted to. You can upload some stories through the day, and that has become the sort of norm. Everyone seems to do that. Every man and his dog has an Instagram for themselves. They'll have one for their business as well. They'll have one for an interest that they have on the side. Everyone's got an Instagram. So it's becoming very hard, and everyone's adding to that noise that is on social media. Everyone's out there every single day. So we're thinking about where we can be that actually may not have that noise, may not have as many people on there, but you may be able to select people who are genuinely interested in your work. I find it very hard sometimes on Instagram is trying to target people who are actually interested in my work. I'm a very geographically confined artist, so I only work with people within my area. I'm not going to be targeting people across the world, because there's probably no chance of me ever working with them. There may be in the very distant future, but at the moment, as it is, it's probably very hard for me to work with people very far away. I was speaking about at the start, it was hard for me to travel down to Sydney on the weekend to take photos. I don't want to be having to travel even further than that. It's going to be very hard for me to work all over the place. So trying to confine myself geographically, I find that tough on Instagram because a lot of the people who follow my Instagram accounts may not be anywhere near me and may be, as a result of that, even if they were someone who was planning to get married and was interested in my services, would never actually use my services because I'm too hard to access. I'm not in their area. So that has been something for me and trying to figure out how I can find people that are in my space. I think for the longest time, one of the biggest things that I've neglected was my actual website. And that is something that is only searchable in my local area. That is very geographically confined because of how I've set my website up and how I used keywords on my website to be able to be searchable on Google and things like that to make sure that it's only within my area and trying to make sure that I'm providing as much value to people in my area so that it becomes searchable to other people who may be interested in my services. You got to think about people. Yes, there will be people who will be using Instagram to try and find a photographer or any type of artist, but there's going to be people who are also online and also on Google and things like that. So they're going to be searching in multiple different places. And if you're not in each one of those places, it's going to be very hard and you're probably losing out on someone who may be out there searching for your work. So I actually had an inquiry last week, and this is what really sparked me on this whole thing, was that I had an inquiry from someone here in Port Macquarie inquiring for me to photograph their wedding. And that really hit me because in their contact form, they said they found me through on Google. And that was never something that's happened before. I've never been found on Google. And that is probably because I've neglected it, and also because I used to live in Sydney and that's a very oversaturated market on Google, and trying to change my whole website to be orientated around the area that I am now. But also thinking that that is actually a service where people are actually searching for the art that I do and searching for the services that I provide. I'm so used to just sticking to Instagram, and I think diversifying myself as much as I possibly can, and that really has led me to think about other places that I could possibly be, because not just thinking about one stream, not just thinking about people who are going to be turning up on my Instagram page randomly. I'm probably missing out on a large chunk of the audience there. If I'm only doing ads on Facebook, I'm probably missing a large chunk of the audience there as well. So thinking about how I can better structure my website, and I'll be trying to do that over the next couple of weeks in trying to make sure that my website is up to scratch, that it can be searchable and it can be able to be found in my local area, because that is one of the biggest things that I have on my side. And then thinking about other social media, there are other search engines out there as well that people could be searching for me and other photographers. So thinking about things like YouTube, that's a huge search engine where people could be searching for photographers. I'm not sure if that's very specific to my area, but if there was to be one search in my area and there aren't anyone else on there from my area, if I'm the only person on there, then that is a big chance that they're going to be able to click on me, hear about my story, hear a little bit about the things that I do, and then they will be someone who may inquire with me, because they're more likely to see me there than they are on Instagram when there's hundreds of other photographers on there. You know what I mean? So thinking about how it is I can get my work in front of the right people and in front of the people who really want to hear it, because I think it's as much about being able to put yourself out there as it is about making sure you're getting yourself in front of the right people. And those two things in balance with each other is really how we can succeed in this whole marketing thing. But I think that is where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I really hope you did enjoy it. I was just really trying to get my ideas out there, and I hope you did really appreciate that and really gain something from this. If you did really enjoy this one, guys, I would really appreciate it if you did share the episode around. But until next week, I will speak to you all, I think, again next Monday. Bye.